Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided.
This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy is sponsored by Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with the intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Products include Westlaw, Practical Law, and Firm Central legal practice management software for small law firms. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the Greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is Life Illuminated. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan, acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. A Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology. Look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Welcome back to Access to Democracy. I'm Alan Miller, and we have a return guest. He's been with us several times in the past, but never in the capacity of a movie star. Chang Wang, who is a Chinese national, but as an attorney who's here at Thomson Reuters, is also a professor of law, both here and in China. And welcome back.
Thank you so much, Alan.
So, the world is spinning very rapidly at the moment. And we were talking a little bit before we went on air about the fact that this election has really knocked China out of the publicity because of Russia and Trump. People aren't talking about China anymore, and I understand China is very happy about that.
Well, yes. And to be honest, before this election, I traveled back to China every year for extended stay, for teaching, training, and work for my company. From my conversation with people inside the system, and they were seriously concerned about the economy, about the political stability in China, about the regional geographic politics, about the United States containing policy through TPP, all of this. And they genuinely fear that the Communist Party regime probably could not survive another 5 to 10 years. And after this election, I traveled back to China again in January, and the government and the party leadership were extremely confident, and they believe that they are the leader of the new world order. They are building a new world order, and they are the leader of Asia. And the TPP is gone. The issue of human rights is gone, and so Chinese government is extremely happy. And of course, there was a Taiwan episode when the new administration called the leader of Taiwan, but that quickly resolved that issue. And so they are apparently, these two administrations getting along very well. And I would say this election probably gave Communist Party of China at least another 20 years.
A big boost for China. As scares the hell out of me, frankly, what happened here. But that is really an interesting observation.
I'm sorry to hear that, but as you know, I spend most of my time in the United States. less in China, and but just from personal experience, every time I travel to China, I was some concern, that because I knew that what my government, government in China was capable of. But only after this election, I was not concerned at all. Because compared to certain figures in this administration, the Communist Party, it doesn't appear that scary anymore. They appear reasonable and moderate.
How things can change with one election.
Well, if
And
we
of
live
course,
long enough, we
the fright was imposed upon us, and as we see the chaos that has happened to our administration here in Washington, we don't know where it's going to go.
Well, it's I don't know where it's going, and of course, what I can share with you is many things on the national stage now in this country. I saw them before in China.
In China,
A lot of tactics and tricks people played, just borrowed from the authoritarian playbook, and there is no journalism, only propaganda.
but China is in big trouble in one respect, because the United States owes China billions and billions of dollars. And now we have a president who has a reputation for not paying his debts.
I think the government, the Chinese government, is not that concerned, and they believe that as long as the economy is doing well, their economy is doing well, and they can maintain the stability in China.
Now, I was reading in the New York Times just today, 68 is the age in which members of the governing group have to retire in China. But President Xi, who's 63, is now trying to set something in motion so that he doesn't have to retire at 68. He's looking ahead. And it's a front-page story on today's New York Times, which is very interesting.
Well, that they might have some scope, and what I can tell you is, I think Xi had a very strong base, and he has consolidated his power, and he has, basically very well respected across the different, different parts of the party and the administration and the country. So he is doing well, and I believe that he might seek a longer term.
And more power to him, what can I say? Now, among all the things we have talked to you about in past interviews, we have never talked about you as the movie star.
You're
So
too kind.
How did this come about? And what's the name of the film?
The name of the film is Domestics. It was an independent film written and directed by a Schumann couple, Mr. Schumann and his wife. They were lawyers. They were Harvard-trained lawyers, and so this is their second film. They produced a film before, and they won NAACP prize. And as you can see there, which side of the ideology they are on. And they have a good friend who is Professor Jim Halbert from Mitchell, Law College of Law. And one day I was in China, so they just called me, said, Professor Hilbert just called me, said, my friend who is a filmmaker is looking for mid-aged Chinese with heavy Chinese accent. And they look at my YouTube, probably one of our past interviews, and they said, that's the guy we want. And so I played, and they said, I'm going to send you a screenplay and read it to see whether or not you want to accept this offer. And I was in China, and I heard that they want me to play a role of a Chinese diplomat I said, don't send me screenplay, because my presumption was they will be anti-Chinese government, sort of evilize the Chinese, government official. So I said, until I landed back in the United States, you can send me the screenplay. So as long as I landed in Minneapolis International Airport, I sent them a text message, said, send me the screenplay. So they did. And then I opened the screenplay, I read it through, I just couldn't believe it. I said, if I knew, send it 2 months ago, there's no problem. There's nothing bad about, my character as a Chinese diplomat. That was 2 years ago. And so I read this screenplay. It's a very complicated story, but basically it was about the national terrorism in name of national security and counterterrorism. So
well, we have a clip, so why don't we just take a look at that clip and then we can talk about it, if the control room will accommodate us.
They're going to close the plant.
What? The state gave them money to keep this plant open. I can't afford to lose this job.
So when are you planning to close the plant?
Plant's got to be off the books this year. That way we can take a huge write-off on the taxes. And we've got to get it done before the workers vote on a union.
I don't know, Kevin. It sounds crazy.
We can't do it on our own. Don't you think they're as fed up with this place as we are?
What's the biggest obstacle to us all getting what we want?
Democrats. Our wives.
Unions.
I gotta tell you something, son. There's something I gotta do. Not like anything I've done before.
I need your advice. It's about my friend Kevin. He won't tell me what he's thinking, but it's something to do with the factory.
You know, Sasha, if you want them to pay attention to you, you have to hit the gringos where it hurts. In the huevos, whatever that means.
I'm telling you, we gotta do it. You with me? You gotta trust me.
All right.
I don't know how much of this is you, how much of this is them, but you crossed the line. Those people are our problem. Better turn them over to us right now.
I'm afraid that is not possible. Now, we are here.
Give your hands where I can see them!
So now have you thrown over your career in law to become a movie star?
Not at all. You humbled me. It's just a cameo appearance, and I enjoying it. And what's interesting about this film is the plot was very crazy. When I read it, it was like Bernie Sanders meet Michael Moore, and so American seeking political asylum at Chinese embassy, and but 2 years later they don't appear that crazy anymore.
Yeah. Well, I had one appearance in a film called Into Temptation, which was a good film, and mine was also a cameo. We spent 3 hours one evening shooting it. I ended up 8 seconds on stage or on screen, no voice. They're looking for somebody to play a dying old man. But it was a fun experience.
It is, yeah. I think it's easier than teaching and lawyering.
I think I've done that too, and I agree with you. And I got a film credit out of it, so I have not joined SAG, and I assume you have not yet either, but maybe we'll open up for both of our careers in the future.
Absolutely. I did go to film school for my undergraduate education.
You did?
Yes, I have a BFA in filmmaking.
Bachelor of Fine Arts, and I didn't. I practiced law, but then I went into film as a teacher. And
our career path just reversed.
Reversed, yeah. Well, that's interesting. In fact, we were going to have some sort of a project going to China, which has not come to pass yet.
I can give you an update after that, after our discussion.
I'm available.
Wonderful.
Especially now, not teaching anymore. So, you also write, and you write a newsletter. You write a newsletter in part with Rick King here at Thomson Reuters, and you're very instrumental in the Thomson Reuters operation of bringing Westlaw to China, among other things. Is that fair to say?
Well, I don't want to exaggerate my role, and I serve as a liaison and between our business here in Minnesota and our business in China. And because I'm legally trained in the United States, so I was able to promote our brand, our products, and in China, also engaging in the academic and the government section in China, provide some thought leadership and provide teaching and training to Chinese lawyers, judges, and law students. So we do have a large team in China, and they're doing very well. We have more than 1,000 employees in China.
When you say we, you're talking about Thomson Reuters, yeah.
And including Reuters folks.
So that's one advantage that Chinese lawyers have over the reverse, which would be here, is that everyone speaks English.
Yes.
They're trained in English from early grades.
Yes. I started to learn English when I was 12 years old. But today's Chinese kids begin to learn English from when they are only 6 or 7 years old. And it's mandatory. You have to pass certain English tests to be able to graduate from high school, from college, and from graduate school. So it's mandatory.
Much more looking ahead, much more forward thinking than what we have here. Although I think now it might be necessary for us to learn Russian in this country, just based on what we hear lately.
Well, my parents' generation, they did learn Russian. And my parents were educated in the 1960s. That was, China was a strong ally of Soviet Union. So my parents' generation, they studied Russian, when they were in college.
Now, you've recently won some awards. Tell us about that.
This a couple of awards. One is China 100 from University of Minnesota. So the first Chinese student came to U of M was 1914. So about 100 years, and U of M graduated basically, more than, I think, 14,000 Chinese graduates from U of M. And currently there are about 5,000 the Chinese students and scholars studying at the U of M.
And that's pretty much across the board. That's in a wide area.
Yes. So U of M, to celebrate this very long relationship with China, U of M want to recognize some, what they call distinguished alumni from U of M. So I was among them. That is one, and then there was a couple of diversity-related awards from the state of Minnesota. There's a Council on Asian Pacific Relations. This is a government agency to promote a meaningful dialogue between the Asian Pacific community and the government, and for the people who contribute to the community. So I was recognized there. And finally, there was a business diversity in business award from Minnesota, Minneapolis.
All that in a movie star to boot.
I don't. It sounds like I'm bragging, But you brought this up.
Well, then it's not bragging. Then it's just being factual. Now, there has been some talk here that the United States under Trump was going to withdraw from the Paris Accords. That was almost every civilized country in the world to fight global warming, and of course, in China's situation, pollution, which has been a big problem in China. So it would be, and again, in today's paper, it talks about the fact that while Steve Bannon, who I consider to be Trump's brain, wants to withdraw, his daughter, Ivanka, does not want us to withdraw, and somebody else influential in the administration does not want us to withdraw. So I don't know where that's going to go, but I sincerely hope that the United States does not withdraw from that accord.
Yeah, it was even the decide to withdraw going to be a long process. It's not that simple. The people for the ideologue and the outsiders to look at the system, they normally have this illusion that they can destroy the system and establishment and build a whole new world and to fit in their ideology.
But it's going to take decades to do that. It's not something where you can snap your fingers and it's going to happen.
Well, look at what happened to China. That China was able to get this done in 8 years, and about 10 years. From 1949, when Mao took over China, to 1957, the anti-racist campaign initiated by Mao. About 8 years, the entire civilization was destroyed. And from the community culture, from the tradition, from the arts, literature, intellectualism was destroyed. But they took, even for very radical genius, if you may, like a Mao, it took 8 years. So, well, to see whether or not the democracy can survive another 8 years.
Well, we certainly hope so. We've made it for 240, and we hope we can survive Trumpism.
I do hope too. I think that there's something good come out of this, and all of this. I don't want to underestimate, and I'm to position myself as an outsider. I live in this country. I love this country. I was admitted into law practice in New York, in Minnesota, and D.C. So I consider myself a Minnesotan. So I do think I do feel share the exactly same feeling with my fellow Minnesotan. I think that this, I don't want to underestimate the tremendous psychological impact this process and this whole election had on me and on my family and on my friends and colleagues. There were three things had this level of this magnitude of psychological impact. That was 1989 Tiananmen massacre, 9/11, and this election.
And the Trump election.
But on the other hand, you look at. I read New York Times and Washington Post every day. I know it's just only certain people read them, not ever cross the political spectrum. But you look at them, this level of journalism and integrity, you don't see it, and the Wall Street Journal as well. You don't see that, in many other countries. And you look at
and journalists are not the enemy of the people.
Oh,
journalists are often the savior of the people. And you will see in dictatorships, one of the first groups that the military will go after is the journalists to silence them. That is not going to happen here. And,
absolutely. Yeah.
And
the
two papers
yes.
that you cite, both of which I read as well, along with the locals, are great institutions and so important under our First Amendment.
Absolutely. Then you have courts. That's the most important thing. You know, the courts cannot be corrupted. You know, the federal court system and the state court system, and in this country, they are of the utmost importance and integrity now. And they only look at the law. They don't care about rhetoric. They don't care about ideology, and they don't care about the demagogue.
No, there's just different ways that different judges interpret the Constitution, but they all focus on the Constitution.
Yes. And you know, you look at the judges. I would say that almost every single judge I met in this country, either state court or federal court, they're just beyond reproach. There's above and beyond, and their utmost integrity, and they only care is the law.
And I know you're very close to a former Minnesota Supreme Court Judge, Paul Anderson, who is probably one of the finest individuals that I have ever met.
I agree.
We're down to our last couple of minutes here, but and there are a whole bunch of topics, as usual, that we didn't get to.
I'm sorry.
But I want to bring up the fact that you are married to a very fine photographer and a well-known photographer. So tell us a little bit about your wife.
Oh, she's we went to Beijing Film Academy. That is an exclusive film school in China. We met there, and that was 1992, 25 years ago. And so we studied. She studied cinematography and photography. I studied film theory and screenwriting. And we got married. And in 2000, I came to University of Illinois for graduate school, and she went to Duke, and later NYU. And when she was at NYU, studied media art. I studied law at Minnesota, and after both of us graduated, and she came here and received another degree here from U of M, and then she been teaching and practicing art in the state of Minnesota.
And you're both Eagonites, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I think, as I recall, you were living right where the new outlet mall, very near to where the new outlet mall is located.
We moved.
You moved?
Yeah. We moved to Rosemount.
Oh.
It's the border of Rosemount and Eagan.
An up and growing community, and away from all the activity at the mall.
Yeah, it's a very quiet neighborhood. You know, we have 3 dogs, so we walk dogs in the neighborhood. It's very quiet and very pleasant.
And you can stop by and walk mine anytime you want.
Absolutely, I look forward to it.
Anyway, something just went roaring out of us to remind us that we're down to our last 30 seconds. But it has been a pleasure to have you. Our guest is
Likewise.
Chang Wang, Chinese movie star, attorney, member of Thomson Reuters, and a very informed and informative guest. And I really thank you for sharing all of that with us. And
thank you very much.
We'll do it again.